Xiaozhan and I were both reborn. In our previous life, we were renowned throughout the capital as a heavenly couple. He was a man of exceptional talent, and I was a woman of rare beauty. Our harmony was as perfect as the strings of a zither. Looking back on my life, it could hardly be called anything but complete. My husband held me in the highest regard. Our eldest son rose to the highest position in the court, and our daughter entered the palace to become empress. I was granted the title of first-rank noble lady by His Majesty, enjoying every luxury and honor imaginable. This time, reborn, Xiaozhan remains the same, cool and aloof, the peerless nobleman of the realm, as radiant as the moon in the heavens. But I no longer cling to delusions, no longer strive to pluck the moon from the sky, no longer exhaust myself trying to please him, no longer tempt him. Xiaozhan and I, this lifetime, we shall never meet again. Henceforth, our paths shall never cross. In my previous life, the marriage between Xiaozhan and me was something I meticulously engineered. My aunt was the second wife of the duke's household. After my mother passed away, my aunt brought me into the mansion and raised me herself. Having no children of her own, she cherished me like her own daughter. The servants in the mansion were respectful to her on the surface, but behind her back, they mocked her. What kind of poor relative brings herself to the duke's mansion to beg for favors? A merchant's daughter is simply beneath respect. My aunt had a gentle nature. After marrying into the marquis's household for over a decade, she still drifted like a rootless duckweed. Without authority to manage the household or anyone to support her, she would hide and weep silently whenever trouble arose. My nature was entirely different from my aunt's. From childhood, I was fiercely competitive, always striving for what I desired. The moment I laid eyes on Xiaozhan, my chaotic heartbeat declared, I want him. But who was Xiaozhan? He was the eldest son of the duke's household, noble and refined like orchids in jade trees. He was the peerless gentleman of the realm, as radiant as the moon in the heavens, cool and aloof, dignified and upright. How could an orphaned girl from a merchant family like me ever hope to touch him? The noble ladies of the capital mocked me, calling me shameless and delusional. Everyone said I was unworthy, but I insisted on him. Xiaozhan eventually married me. At a banquet, he was ambushed by villains and poisoned with a deadly drug. I volunteered to share his bed to help him detoxify. That night, he was tender beyond measure. Even under the drug's influence, he fought to restrain himself. Whispering in my ear, he prioritized my comfort. When pain made me cry out, his eyes flashed crimson. He closed them, forcing himself to pause. Don't cry. Don't cry. He kissed away my tears with gentle, lingering kisses. I nearly drowned in the unfamiliar waves of passion Xiaozhan stirred within me. After our intimate embrace, Xiaozhan finally sobered. Seeing my body covered in bruises, he froze abruptly. He quickly turned away. I have defiled my cousin's purity. I will take full responsibility. Tomorrow, I shall send envoys to the Jiang household to propose marriage. He was a gentleman. The matter was settled. He had no choice but to marry me. After the wedding, Xiaozhan remained aloof and solemn. The Xiaozhan I received was a shell carved from ice and snow. Towards me, he was always cool, distant, faint, and still. It mattered not. If the mountain would not come to me, I would go to the mountain. Through my relentless persistence, we gradually began to resemble a heavenly couple. For instance, when I played the zither, he would harmonize with his flute, or when we played chess, he would tolerate my repeated retractions of moves. Xiaozhan took no concubines, kept no beautiful maids. Everyone envied my good fortune. They said I married the finest man in the world, so deeply devoted to his wife. Hearing this, I merely smiled faintly. reflecting on my life. Not only did I marry Xiaozhan as I wished, raising two outstanding children, I was also granted the title of first-rank noble consort by His Majesty, enjoying the height of honor and wealth. Life seemed perfectly complete, until my final moments. I gazed into Xiaozhan's eyes, unchanged for decades, as still as a lake. Without thinking, I asked, "Xiaozhan, have you ever truly cherished me?" Xiaozhan remained silent. I smiled and closed my eyes. In my dying breath, it felt as though I'd returned to our wedding night. Xiaozhan was long overdue. I lifted my veil myself and made my way to the study, where I found Xiaozhan, drunk to the point of unconsciousness. He lay sprawled across the desk, his brow slightly furrowed, cheeks flushed crimson, eyelashes quivering lightly. A sense of brokenness emanated from him. On the desk lay a painting, a beauty sleeping amidst spring quince blossoms. The ink was still wet, clearly a recent work, though the beauty was depicted only from behind. I recognized her instantly. It was the crown prince's betrothed, Xin Yunli, the daughter of the prime minister. Moonlight streamed through the window, bathing the new painting. Every stroke seemed steeped in love. I suppressed the flood of thoughts surging within me. I slipped quietly from the study, as if I had never been there, never seen it at all. Back then, I was young and headstrong, stubbornly charging headlong into walls. If there is a next life, I will live differently. No more foolish dreams of plucking the moon from the heavens. No more exhausting efforts to please Xiaozhan. No more tempting him. Xiaozhan and I. In the next life, we should never meet again. From now on, our paths shall never cross. When I opened my eyes again, I had reborn to the night Xiaozhan was drugged. At that moment, I straddled Xiaozhan's waist, my silk robe half undone, my fragrant shoulder slightly exposed, and Xiaozhan's hands that had spent years holding brushes and playing the zither, were wrapped around my slender waist. His fingers were long and slender, with distinct knuckles, veins bulging on the back of his hand. The pressure on my waist fluctuated, sometimes light, sometimes heavy. I couldn't tell if he wanted to hold tighter or let go. I froze for a moment. Then, snapping back to reality, I pushed him away. This cannot be. I flipped off the bed, pulled my half-undone robes tight, and covered my chest completely. Xiaozhan leaned back against the bed, his face flushed crimson, his dark hair cascading like a waterfall, his clothes disheveled. Stripped of his usual cool reserve, he resembled a mesmerizing demon in the night, his entire being radiating a startling, captivating beauty. His dark eyes were hazy, gazing at me with a dazed expression, his voice low and hoarse. "We are husband and wife. Why not?" My heart trembled slightly. Then I understood, Xiaozhan must have been reborn too. But I had sworn, if there was a next life, I would stay far from Xiaozhan. Thinking this, I lifted my tear-filled eyes to meet his. My cousin and I are neither married nor betrothed. How could we be husband and wife? I know you've always looked down on me. Why must you humiliate me like this? Hearing this, the haze in Xiaozhan's eyes gradually cleared. He first scanned the surroundings, then met my tear-filled gaze. His brows slightly furrowed. "I'm sorry, but I could no longer bear even half a word from him." I abruptly cut him off. "Rest assured, cousin, I will never bother you again." With that, I took off running into the night breeze. I made my way to the lakeside. Using the clear lake surface, I carefully composed myself, as if nothing had happened, and returned to the banquet. My aunt grasped my slightly chilled hand. "You were gone so long? Your hands are cold. Are you cold?" I gave her a sweet smile. "Auntie, I'm not cold. I'm very happy." Auntie smiled back. That night, Xiaozhan did not return to the banquet. The next morning, my aunt and I were having breakfast. A servant from Xiaozhan's entourage arrived to report. The young master has fallen ill and cannot come to pay his respects to the lady. He begs your forgiveness. Xiaozhan possessed the noble bearing of a gentleman, disciplined and courteous. Though his relationship with my aunt, his stepmother, was not particularly close, he always observed proper etiquette toward her. My aunt set down her chopsticks and asked with concern, "Why has he suddenly fallen ill? Has a physician been consulted?" The young servant, Mo Chi, glanced up at me. I pretended not to hear and continued drinking my old duck soup. Mo Chi replied respectfully. He said he drank some wine at last night's banquet and accidentally lost his footing, falling into the lake. The lake water in early spring was bone-chillingly cold. Even the strongest constitution couldn't withstand such ordeal. He came down with a high fever last night, and it still hasn't broken. My aunt was deeply concerned and immediately rose to go see Xiaozhan. She had already reached the doorway. Mo Chi suddenly asked, "Auntie, won't you go see the young master too?" My aunt realized what he meant and turned to look at me. "Indeed. Zengzhen. You're always chasing after your cousin. Why aren't you accompanying him today?" I set down my spoon. "I shan't go. Please convey my regards to my cousin, Auntie." Then, with solemn earnestness, I added, "In the past, I was young and ignorant. I shan't pester my cousin anymore." Xiaozhan had been ill for a long time, yet I had never once visited him. He even dismissed the tutors who taught me zither and chess. In my past life, I shattered myself into pieces, ground them into dust, and reshaped them into whatever form Xiaozhan desired. He loved playing the zither, so I practiced relentlessly, hoping for just one glance from him. He enjoyed chess. I sought out masters, pored over game manuals, all to prolong our time together when we played. Xiaozhan never knew. The truth is, I never loved playing the zither or chess. This time, I will be the real Jiang Wenjing. I told my aunt I wished to move out of the Duke's residence. Since I must distance myself, I should no longer share the same roof with Xiaozhan. My aunt held my hand, tears falling pitter-patter. I'd lived in the Duke's residence since I was 10, 5 years now. All this time, my aunt and I had been inseparable. Her reluctance to part was profound. "Xingxin, have you heard about Zhon'er's betrothal to the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister's household?" I froze. It felt both sudden and inevitable. Even I longed for a different life. Xiaozhan would naturally wish to make amends for the regrets of his past life. Yet I still couldn't quite grasp it. Wasn't Miss Shen designated as the Crown Prince's betrothed by His Majesty? My aunt explained. When His Majesty arranged the Crown Prince's betrothal, he didn't specify which Shen family daughter. Besides Shen Yunli, the Shen family has a second daughter, a quiet one, known to few. If the eldest Shen daughter marries Zhon'er, the Shen family will likely send the second daughter to the Eastern Palace. News of the two families' marriage discussions hadn't spread yet. I only learned of it by chance when the Duke mentioned it last time. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. The chaotic marriage of my past life could be corrected in this one. All that remained was to wait for Wu Jin to arrive in the capital in half a month. Then I could move away. New rumors began circulating within the mansion. They say I failed to seduce the young master and now play hard to get. While those two maids gossiped in the rear courtyard, I was organizing books in the library. Originally, to win Xiaozhan's favor, I had spent a fortune collecting these rare editions. I intend to take them all with me when I leave the Duke's residence. As I sorted through them, I overheard the chatter below perfectly. Miss Zhang's up to her old tricks again. She was all over the young master before, but now he's ill and she's not even checking on him. Clearly she's just stringing him along. A courtesan is a courtesan, nothing but dirty tricks from the brothel. No matter how many tricks she uses, The young master won't like her. Her figure's too seductive. Her looks too vulgar. She's no proper lady at all. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention, dismissing it as mere barking. But then I heard a familiar voice snap. "How dare you!" The tone was icy cold, like frozen snow. I peered down. After his illness, Xia Zhan looked noticeably thinner. A moon-white robe hung loosely on his frame, the breeze making him appear almost skeletal. Beside him stood a woman of rare, ethereal beauty. None other than Qin Yunli, the young mistress of the Prime Minister's household. The two maidservants turned ashen with fright, collapsing to their knees with a thud. "Forgive us, young master. We know we've erred." Xia Zhan's expression was icy. "Half a year's wages deducted. Then go to Steward Meng for 10 strokes of the cane." After the maids retreated, sobbing, Qin Yunli looked at Xia Zhan in confusion. "Why are you so angry, Brother Zhan?" It was just a minor matter, the servants were gossiping. Why such a severe punishment? She and Xia Zhan had been childhood sweethearts. Their familiarity carried an intimacy no outsider could penetrate. Xia Zhan lowered his gaze, his tone calm and detached. The servants in this household grow increasingly insolent. Harsh punishment serves as a warning to others. A fleeting shadow crossed Qin Yunli's eyes before she smiled again, her voice teasing. "That sounds noble enough. But isn't it really just to protect Miss Jiang?" "Ah, Miss Jiang is truly formidable." Xia Zhan lowered his gaze to meet hers, his dark eyes concealing a hint of indulgent affection. "I am not protecting my cousin. Had this incident involved anyone else, I would have dealt with it in the same manner." Qin Yunli wrinkled her nose, pouting playfully. All right. Master Xia is a noble gentleman of the highest character. I've been judging a gentleman by my own petty standards. Xia Zhan had once severely punished servants for my sake. Back when I had just married him, the servants looked down on me for my merchant background and secretly sabotaged me. Some were former attendants left behind by Xia Zhan's birth mother. Others were his wet nurse. All were respected elders holding positions of prominence within the Duke's household. I had intended to endure it first, then address the issue gradually. Upon learning of this, Xia Zhan expelled them all from the Duke's residence, banishing them to the country estates. The old Duke flew into a rage. He had been deeply enamored with Xia Zhan's mother and had always indulged the attendants she had left behind. My aunt was the stand-in he found for his first wife. In a way, those servants were also substitutes for his first wife. In the end, Xia Zhan was punished to kneel in the ancestral hall for 7 days and nights in self-reflection. I snuck to the ancestral hall in the dead of night to kneel beside him. Xia Zhan tried to shoo me away, but I squeezed close to him and clung on. I wouldn't leave. The trouble started because of me. Besides, we are husband and wife, we should share hardships together. Xia Zhan's voice was distant and cold. This has nothing to do with you. They've been acting arrogantly for far too long. They deserved punishment. Every word was a disclaimer. Yet I smiled, lips pressed tight, my heart brimming with joy. After all, Xia Zhan didn't act sooner. The moment servants dared offend me, he dealt with them immediately, yet he stubbornly insisted it had nothing to do with me. I didn't believe a word of it. I knelt willingly, though soon my legs grew numb as if pricked by needles. I secretly shifted from kneeling to sitting, then from sitting to lying down, finally curling up on the cushion and falling into a deep sleep. I slept until the sky began to lighten. I found Xia Zhan's outer robe draped over me, faintly scented with ink. He himself wore only a thin, single layer. He was still kneeling, his back straight as a bamboo shoot, his posture impeccable. It was early winter, and the ancestral hall was bitterly cold. Xia Zhan had given me his outer robe, catching a severe chill himself that left him gravely ill. Watching him feverish and flushed, I nearly hated myself for having slept in the hall. I wept uncontrollably at his bedside. He gazed at me with calm, lowered eyes. If one of us must fall ill, let it be me. After all, I am your husband. I chewed on those words over and over. Somehow, I managed to find a hint of sweetness in them. Tears still glistened on my cheeks. Yet my mind drifted into a hazy thought. Surely Xiaozhan must feel something for me? Why else would he dismiss my mother's attendant to assert his authority over me? Why else would he willingly give me his outer robe? Endure his own illness without waking me? It took me most of my life to understand. Xiaozhan's feelings toward me never stemmed from affection. Only from his character. He is a good man. He simply does not love me. Weren't you looking for that rare book? Let's go. As they spoke, they entered the library. I didn't want to run into them. I stayed hidden in the attic, waiting for them to finish searching and leave. Unexpectedly, after searching downstairs for a while, they soon headed back up the wooden staircase to the attic. The attic was small. There was nowhere to hide. So I gave up trying. I collided with them head-on. Our eyes locked. Xiaozhan's icy gaze darkened. Xin Yinli exclaimed in surprise. Miss Jiang is in the attic? Good thing Brother Zhan and I didn't speak ill of you earlier. She gave me another once-over. Her smile radiant. It seems the rumors aren't entirely unfounded. Miss Jiang's attire today is quite flamboyant, truly unlike her usual self. Even I find it rather appealing. The noble ladies of the capital city always spoke with hidden barbs and veiled meanings. First, they mocked me for eavesdropping. Then they mocked my garish, vulgar dress. Yet I remained unperturbed, replying with measured indifference. I am certainly no match for Miss Shin's noble grace and elegant demeanor. In my previous life, to please Xiaozhan's austere and proper nature, I scarcely ever wore makeup. My jewelry and hairpins were all jade, and my garments were predominantly plain and understated. But today, I wore a crimson gown. My lips were painted with vivid rouge, and my hair adorned with a glittering golden hairpin. Dressed so elaborately, it seemed as if I were trying to seduce someone. But this is the real me. I adore vibrant dresses, beautiful cosmetics, and dazzling, opulent jewelry. I used to despise that garish version of myself. Countless times, I tried to transform into Xin Yinli, a refined, jade-like lady of noble birth. Now, however, I feel perfectly content. I no longer wish to live as someone else. After wrestling with myself for so long, I'd rather be me. I carried the box I'd just packed, ready to head downstairs. Xiaozhan's gaze swept over the box in my hands before he suddenly spoke. Where is my cousin taking all these books? I didn't want to stir up trouble. Reading, to pass the time. Xiaozhan fixed his eyes on mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The attic fell suddenly silent. Xin Yinli curved her lips, her smile breaking the heavy stillness. Can Miss Jiang really read all these books? Perhaps they should be left for someone who truly loves them. Her eyes brightened as she picked up the top book, turning to Xiaozhan with delight. Brother Zhan, this is exactly what I've been searching for, the rare edition of the Pharmacopoeia. A surge of anger flared within me, and my voice grew stiff. Taking without permission is theft. Return Miss Shin's book to me. Xin Yinli's eyes instantly reddened, tears teetering on the brink. Xiaozhan's expression grew icy, his voice cold. Cousin, you've gone too far. I thought I had grown numb. Yet Xiaozhan's icy tone still stabbed me like a dagger. I abruptly averted my gaze. He seemed to realize his words had been too harsh, softening his tone as he negotiated with me. You can't possibly read all this at once. Could you let Yinli have the book while you read something else first? So even the lofty young Master Xia would beg for someone he cherished. I murmured in a daze. What if I insist on reading this one first? Xie Zhan didn't catch it, furrowing his brow as he repeated his question. Cousin? Gazing into Xie Zhan's dark, icy eyes, I felt a wave of release wash over me. Very well. I'll do as you say. Cousin. News of the Xianxian families discussing a marriage alliance spread throughout the capital. Once again, I became the topic of people's gossip. They laughed at me. A toad dreaming of swallowing a swan, grasping at straws. Amidst the uproar in the capital, Wu Jin arrived in the city ahead of schedule. I first went to see the new residence he had purchased. By the time I returned, dusk had fallen. At the gates of the Duke's mansion, we encountered Xie Zhan. He rode his horse up to the entrance. I happened to be stepping down from the carriage, my hand resting on Wu Jin's arm. Our eyes met. Xie Zhan's gaze was icy, fixed intently on my hand resting on Wu Jin's arm. I was about to curtsy to him, but he turned away expressionless, handed the reins to a servant at the gate, and strode deep into the mansion. Wu Jin snorted coldly, sneering. What a show! The so-called first gentleman under heaven? I'm the first great merchant under heaven. With that, he turned back and smiled at me. His features were sharp and handsome, with a hint of boyish charm beneath his brows. When he smiled, his eyes sparkled with vitality. Thankfully, sister has found her way back. That sort of man isn't worth your devotion. Unlike me, I'd only ever hurt for you. My head ached. Wu Jin was an adopted son my parents had found. Half a year younger than me. He was technically my younger brother, though he never acted like one. I still remember when he first came to our home. He told my parents that when he grew up, he wanted to marry into our family and wed me. My parents were rather unconventional in their ways. They absurdly agreed to his request, saying they would support him if he could convince me. In my previous life, every time Wu Jin saw Xie Zhan, he would hurl insults at him, and whenever Xie Zhan saw Wu Jin, his expression would darken more than usual. The two were like oil and water. After bidding farewell to Wu Jin, I walked through the corridor, stepping onto the blue brick path. Just as I neared the courtyard gate, I paused. Under the magnolia tree not far away stood a tall, slender figure. Xie Zhan emerged slowly from the shadows. Moonlight poured over him like water, making him look like an immortal descended from the heavens. Xie Zhan's gaze was cold as he silently stared at me for a long time. So long that I was about to make an excuse to leave when he finally spoke indifferently. Wu Jin is a man of deep cunning and devious ways. He is no good person. I paused, taken aback. I hadn't expected him to misunderstand my relationship with Wu Jin. I didn't wish to elaborate, replying calmly, Wu Jin is a good man. At least he's entirely sincere with me. Xie Zhan's face paled. It's getting late. Cousin, you should return to your quarters and rest. I said it lightly, then started walking back to my own courtyard. As we passed each other, Xie Zhan suddenly grabbed my wrist. He held it so tightly it hurt. Zheng, don't choose Wu Jin. I turned back, looking at his hand gripping mine. Cousin, you've overstepped. He didn't release his grip. The corners of his eyes were faintly reddened, his tone restrained and subdued. Though we didn't go all the way that night, we shared physical intimacy. I ought to take responsibility for you. Zheng, will you marry me? The same promise as in my past life, to take responsibility for me. To marry me. But I no longer needed it. My life is mine to take responsibility for. I reminded him, word by word. Cousin, you and Miss Shin are already discussing marriage. Xie Zhan snapped out of his daze, his lips parting, yet no words came out. He could only slowly, helplessly, release my hand. The next morning, I went to bid farewell to my aunt. My belongings were already loaded into the carriage, and Wu Jin was waiting by the side. Seeing me emerge, he hurried over, his entire face a smile, eyes sparkling with delight. Sister, I brought your favorite red bean cakes and jujube flour pastries. Motherly got up early to make them, her specialty. They're still warm. Hop in and have some. My eyes lit up, my mouth watering at the thought. I couldn't wait to climb aboard. The carriage interior was smooth and spacious. Wu Jin opened an exquisite food box, and the sweet aroma of the pastries instantly filled the entire carriage. I took out a piece of red bean cake. The moment I gently bit into it, the sweet, sticky, and soft texture exploded in my mouth. The familiar taste nearly brought tears to my eyes. I had once made red bean cakes for Xiaozhan. I learned the craft from Auntie Li since childhood, mastering 8 parts of her true skill and pouring in 10 parts of my own heart. I picked out each red bean one by one, plump, round, bright red, and full. I chose red bean cake because red beans also symbolize longing. It was my most successful batch ever. I joyfully brought it to Xiaozhan. He happened to be hosting a poetry gathering, and Xin Yinli was there too. She covered her mouth and laughed. Miss Jiang, why would you bring such a thing to Brother Zhan? Coming from Yangzhou. You must not know that young nobles in the capital don't eat red bean cakes, they're for common folk. Her tone was soft and gentle, yet her words stung. The other young nobles and ladies joined in the laughter. Only Xiaozhan remained silent. He took the food box from my hands and quietly saved me from embarrassment. Thank you, cousin. I'll try them tonight. Later, when I sought him out again, I saw that food box gathering dust in a corner. Gently lifting the lid, I found the red bean cakes untouched, dried out and shriveled like pickled vegetables. My place in Xiaozhan's heart was like that box of red bean cakes. He accepted them out of politeness and upbringing, yet held no interest. In the end, they could only be left in a corner to gather dust. After that, I never touched red bean cakes again, viewing them as a source of shame. But what fault lies with the pastry itself? The fault clearly rests with those who categorize food into rigid hierarchies. I stuffed it into my mouth so hastily I nearly choked. Wu Jin gently patted my back, poured me another cup of warm floral tea, and gazed at me with eyes clear and pure. Take your time, sister. Try this floral tea, it cuts through the richness nicely. Steamy vapors dampened my lashes. It had been ages since I'd felt the warmth of genuine care. Though my aunt treated me as her own daughter, she was naive and fragile. Life in the Duke's mansion wasn't easy for her, mostly. I was the one protecting her. In my past life, Xiaozhan and I were husband and wife. Yet he never once reached out to me. He simply stood there silently, waiting for me to struggle step by step toward him. Between us, I was the one desperately giving, the one constantly sacrificing. The sweetness of the red bean cake slowly seeped from my tongue into my heart. I popped a piece into Wu Jin's mouth too. Try some. Wu Jin's eyes crinkled with a smile. Delicious. Sister gave it to me. First came the sound of galloping hooves outside the carriage, growing louder as they approached. Then our horse let out a startled whinny. The next moment, the carriage screeched to a halt. I nearly tumbled out, but Wu Jin swiftly pulled me back. A cold voice penetrated the carriage. Where might my cousin be headed? I lifted the curtain. Xiaozhan stood beside the carriage atop a white steed, his expression stern as he watched me silently. He should be attending the morning court session. Why was he here? I hadn't intended to disturb him with my departure. But at this point, there was no need for secrecy. Cousin, I must go. Xiaozhan's jaw tightened. His hand gripped the reins so tightly his knuckles turned white. Why? The Duke's residence is never truly my home. Where is your home? Is it wherever Wu Jin is? He is my brother. Brother. Xie Zhan's mocking smile flickered, a fleeting glint in his eyes. Jiang Wenjing, you always do this, always clinging to your own delusions. The once clear sky had begun to rain without warning. A spring breeze stirred, carrying a fine, thread-like drizzle. Xie Zhan's face was streaked with droplets, whether rain or tears. It was unclear. His eyes were red-rimmed as he asked, his voice trembling. Xinxin, you've come back too, haven't you? A spring thunderclap cracked. Yet my heart remained still as water, stirring not a single ripple. Xie Zhan choked back sobs, speaking frantically and urgently. Xing, do you no longer want me? No. What about the children? Do you abandon our 2 sons and daughters too? They will find better homes, with parents who love each other, and live happily ever after. Xie Zhan's face turned deathly pale, the icy mask he wore cracking inch by inch. My expression remained serene. Xie Zhan, what you feel for me isn't love, only years of dependence. You betrayed me in your past life. In this one, do not betray Xinyunli again, nor your own true heart. The rain grew heavier. Xie Zhan stood dazed in the downpour, finally forcing a faint smile after a long while. Take care on your journey, cousin. Should you face hardship, seek me at the Duke's residence. I shall always be your cousin. The carriage wheels rolled forward once more. Xie Zhan stood by the roadside, watching me disappear into the distance. And I never once looked back. 5 years passed, spring giving way to autumn. Now 20. I remained unmarried, an old maid considered scandalous by convention. Yet within the capital, no one dared gossip about me anymore. For all knew Miss Jiang had a mad brother who fiercely protected his sister. That brother happened to be the Minister of Justice, favored by the emperor and a trusted confidant. Should anyone dare gossip about his sister and he found out, he'd draw his sword, leaving them either dead or half dead with fright. The noble ladies of the capital united in solidarity, speaking up for me, all because Miss Jiang had opened a shop in the most bustling district of the capital. The jewels, fine garments, and cosmetics within were all her own designs. Every young lady who stepped out of that shop was as beautiful as a celestial being, each radiating a unique charm. Who wouldn't want to become more beautiful? Miss Jiang became the object of the noble lady's fervent pursuit. These past 5 years had changed so much from my previous life. In my past life, the crown prince had been frail. He ascended the throne but passed away within 2 years, leaving behind Empress Dowager Xinyunli and a young emperor barely a year old. It was only through Xie Zhan's repeated, desperate protection that the young emperor survived. In this life, the crown prince died even earlier, perishing before he could ascend the throne. The imperial princes fought each other, and ultimately, the throne was seized by the second prince, the son the late emperor disliked most, who had spent years stationed at the frontier. Xie Zhan and Xinyunli never married. Xinyunli was first betrothed to the crown prince, then engaged to Xie Zhan. Neither match materialized. Whispers began circulating in the capital, and no suitor dared approach her. Yet she, as the foremost noble lady, possessed an innate pride and dignity that forbade her from marrying lightly. In the end, she became like me, an old maid, waiting in her chamber. It was as if fate were deliberately pitting us against each other. I opened a shop, she established a girls' academy. We both gained renown in our respective fields. That day, as I finished crafting a box of rouge, Xinyunli came calling. It was our first meeting in 5 years. Xinyunli remained as fresh and ethereal as ever, though her demeanor seemed altered, more composed and gentle. She apologized to me. Miss Jiang, I've long owed you an apology. I once targeted you in secret. I was shallow before. Reading and writing were merely tools to gain leverage. Only through these 5 years of teaching did I begin to grasp some truths about being human. As she spoke, she bowed deeply to me, surprised, I helped her up and returned the deep bow. We smiled at each other. All grievances seemed to vanish into thin air. Xinyinli was setting off on her travels. She said reading 10,000 books couldn't compare to journeying 10,000 miles. Her 5 years as a student had made her realize her own shortcomings. She was going to see herself. To see all beings. To see the world. I embraced her. Don't say the sunset years are too late, the sky still glows with crimson clouds. I'll wait for your safe return in the capital. On the day she left the capital, a fierce wind arose. Sand and dust stung my eyes. And I found myself shedding tears. Wu Jin wiped my tears. Half-jokingly complaining. Sister is soft-hearted toward everyone. Yet only cruel to me. Then he laughed again. The jade-faced demon who silenced children's night cries. The ruthless and madly tempered minister of the Dali temple, before my sister. He always wore a gentle, painted expression. His gaze soft and warm. But it doesn't matter. I just love my sister. And I'll always be by her side. My heart felt like it was soaked in a honey pot. Sweet to the point of cloying. Over these 5 years, Wu Jin gradually warmed my once numb heart. It began to beat again. Vibrant and full of life. Only then did I understand what it felt like to be loved wholeheartedly. I took Wu Jin's hand and we went together to our parents' graves. Do you remember what you told our parents back then? Wu Jin seemed to have already guessed what I wanted to say. Her eyes shining with astonishing brightness. I don't want to be an adopted son. Nor do I want to be a younger brother. When I grow up, I want to marry into the Jiang family and wed Jiang Wenjing. My eyes crinkled as I whispered softly. Then, Jin, will you marry me? Wu Jin's eyes suddenly flushed crimson. He pulled me into his arms with a start. His voice hoarse. Sister. Zing Zing. I've waited for those words for so very long, 2 lifetimes long. My heart ached. I embraced him back. Tears streaming down my face. I hadn't been wrong after all, Wu Jin had been reborn in this lifetime too. In our past life. He never married for my sake. Willingly managing the Jiang family's affairs for me his entire life. Before turning 30, exhaustion ruined his health. After his death, he bequeathed every last possession to me. On his deathbed, he held my hand and called me sister with a sly smile. Sister, I'll tell you a secret. I traded my remaining years to beg the Buddha for one more chance at rebirth. Next life. Choose me. Okay? I thought it was just his playful words. Gradually, I forgot about it. Until 2 years ago, when it suddenly came back to me. It turned out my second chance at life was entirely Wu Jin's doing. Wu Jin and I held our grand wedding. A 10-mile procession of red bridal finery. An extravagant spectacle. Even His Majesty sent congratulatory gifts. Many of the guests present had been beaten by Wu Jin. Can we talk now? Back then, when Lord Wu beat us so badly, I could tell right away he felt something special for Miss Jiang. It definitely wasn't just sibling affection. Did it even need seeing? Whenever Miss Jiang was around, Lord Wu's eyes practically glued themselves to her. Even a blind man could tell. Oh, really? You saw it all along and didn't tell me? I was foolishly confessing my feelings to Miss Jiang, wondering why Lord Wu's gaze felt like he wanted to kill me. Everyone chuckled and joked about it. Yet I knew none of this. Veiled in red, I sat quietly by the bed, waiting for Wu Jin. I knew he wouldn't keep me waiting long. Sure enough, moments later, I heard the door creak softly as someone pushed it open. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a sudden surge of nervousness. Jin, have you returned so soon? The figure didn't answer. Thinking Wu Jin might be displeased with my address, I suppressed my blushing embarrassment and called out again. Husband. The figure finally stirred, turning and hurrying away. I froze. Then realized that person hadn't been Wu Jin. If I'm not mistaken, It must have been Xiaozhan. Soon the door opened again. Wu Jin entered with light steps, approached me, and gently lifted my red veil. The moment our eyes met, his cheeks flushed bright red. "Sister, you're so beautiful." I gazed into his clear, gentle eyes, filled with overflowing affection. We drank from the ceremonial cup. Both of us sat dumbly on the bedside, neither moving. I thought, as the elder sister, it wouldn't be wrong for me to take the initiative. Gathering my courage, I tried to untie Wu Jin's sash. After fiddling with it for ages without success, cold sweat began to bead on my forehead. My aunt took me into the mansion to raise me personally. "Sister, please stop touching me. You have no idea how difficult this is for me." My face flushed crimson instantly, and I dared not move again. Wu Jin swiftly shed his outer garments himself, then gently embraced me as we slipped beneath the crimson canopy. He kissed me tenderly, whispering in my ear, "Sister, you're trembling." I snapped in embarrassment. "Shut up." Wu Jin chuckled softly, gripping my waist to hold me captive in his embrace. "So fierce. Zengzhen. Don't be afraid. I'll be very gentle. Won't I hurt you?" I felt like a bundle of dry kindling. One spark would set me ablaze, reducing me to ashes, or like a fish gasping for water, parched, searching desperately for a source. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves. Inside, the red candle flickered. The long night held no sleep. The end.